I said, man, whatever you got to do, I don't care. But you got to get off my back because I don't work that way.
Lawrence Taylor has often talked about the heated relationship he shared with Bill Parcells, but no one really knew how intense it was until now. Newly surfaced footage of the two going at it reveals there was far more happening 30 years ago than anyone realized. Let's break it down. The volatile partnership: giants, genius, and grenades. The relationship between Lawrence Taylor and Bill Parcells began in 1981 when Taylor was drafted second overall by the Giants, with Parcells serving as the team's defensive coordinator. From the very first moment they met, sparks flew, not the good kind. Taylor, a raw, explosive talent from the University of North Carolina, arrived in New York as a physical marvel who could single-handedly terrorize opposing offenses. Standing 6'3" and weighing 240 pounds with blazing speed, Taylor possessed the rare combination of size, athleticism, and ferocity that would revolutionized the linebacker position. But Taylor wasn't just physically imposing. He was mentally challenging for any coach brave enough to handle him. Parcells, who became head coach in 1983, was exactly the kind of no-nonsense, iron-fisted leader who relished such challenges. Known for his gravelly voice, chain-smoking intensity, and unyielding demand for excellence, Parcells had built his coaching philosophy around one simple principle: confrontation clears the air and accountability breeds champions. The first major clash between these two titans occurred during Taylor's rookie training camp, setting the tone for what would become a decade-long battle of wills. Taylor later recounted the pivotal moment when Parcells was riding him mercilessly during practice.
I said, and I told Bill, I said, Bill, either cut me, trade me, or put John Scorpan back in front of me. I said, man, whatever you got to do, I don't care. But you got to get off my back because I don't work that way.
Rather than crushing Taylor's spirit, Parcells had found exactly what he was looking for: a player with the fire to match his own intensity. This wasn't just coaching. This was psychological alchemy. Parcells understood that managing Lawrence Taylor required a completely different playbook. The traditional methods wouldn't work on a generational talent who operated by his own rules. Instead, Parcells made a calculated decision that would define their entire relationship.
He looked at me. He said, okay, I'm gonna let you do it your way. But when you screw up, you gotta do it my way.
This exchange revealed the essence of their relationship: a constant push and pull between Taylor's rebellious genius and Parcells' structured authority. What followed was a silence that lasted 10 years, at least off the field. As Taylor explained, they simply didn't need to talk. Their mutual understanding transcended words, forged in the crucible of competition and mutual respect. The dynamic between Parcells and Taylor wasn't just about football. It was about two alpha personalities learning to coexist in pursuit of greatness. Parcells had long believed that great players needed to be broken down before being built up, and Taylor represented the ultimate test of this philosophy. The coach saw in Taylor not just exceptional talent, but a raw intensity that needed to be channeled rather than suppressed. Their relationship was perhaps best illustrated during the infamous 1987 NFL strike, when most players honored the picket line, but Taylor made the controversial decision to cross it. The strike-shortened season created a unique dynamic where Taylor, the team's biggest star, played alongside replacement players in what became known as scab games. It was during this chaotic period that the recently resurfaced footage was captured, showing Parcells and Taylor in heated sideline exchanges that perfectly encapsulated their volatile partnership. The newly circulated clips show Parcells, headset around his neck, gesticulating wildly as he barks instructions and criticism at Taylor. What makes the footage so compelling is Taylor's reaction, or lack thereof. The linebacker stands stoically, occasionally nodding, but mostly just absorbing Parcells' intensity with the calm of a man who had grown accustomed to his coach's volcanic temperament. This was vintage Parcells, using psychological warfare and intense motivation to extract peak performance from his players. But their clashes weren't limited to the sidelines. Throughout their partnership, Taylor and Parcells engaged in a series of confrontations that tested the boundaries of their professional relationship. One of the most significant occurred in 1985 when Parcells promoted a young Bill Belichick to defensive coordinator, a move that infuriated Taylor, who saw Belichick as little more than a towel boy from his special teams coaching days. Taylor stormed into Parcells' office, unleashing a profanity-laced tirade. "I cursed Parcells out when he hired Belichick as the defensive coordinator. I come into the league and I meet Bill Belichick. He's an assistant special teams coach. What the hell is that? Assistant special teams coach? That's like a towel boy. And then the next year he's special teams coach. And then the third year Parcells becomes the head coach and he makes Belichick the defensive coordinator, and I went ape. I went up to him and I said, ain't no way, ain't no way." Parcells, rather than backing down, revealed that Belichick had actually been the architect behind many of the defensive schemes that had made Taylor so successful. This revelation shocked Taylor into grudging acceptance, demonstrating Parcells' ability to turn even the most heated confrontations into teaching moments. Another legendary clash occurred during Taylor's 1983 contract holdout, which lasted 3 weeks and threatened to derail the Giants' season before it began. Taylor, seeking a significant pay raise after his stellar rookie and sophomore campaigns, simply refused to show up to training camp. The standoff created media frenzy and internal team tension, with Parcells publicly maintaining his composure while privately seething about his star player's absence. The psychological warfare between the two men was perhaps most evident during their practice sessions, where Parcells would deliberately antagonize Taylor to test his mental toughness. Former teammates recall sessions where Parcells would berate Taylor over missed assignments or mental lapses, often using language that would make a sailor blush. But Taylor, rather than wilting under the pressure, seemed to thrive on it, using Parcells' criticism as fuel for his relentless pursuit of excellence. What made their relationship so fascinating was the mutual respect that undergirded all the conflict. Parcells recognized that Taylor was unlike any player he had ever coached, possessing an almost supernatural ability to disrupt opposing offenses. Taylor, despite his frequent clashes with authority, understood that Parcells was pushing him to reach heights he might never have achieved under a more permissive coach. The relationship between Parcells and Taylor was ultimately defined by results. Together, they transformed the Giants from a perennial also-ran into a championship dynasty, winning Super Bowl 21 following the 1986 season and Super Bowl 25 after the 1990 campaign. Taylor's individual achievements under Parcells' guidance were equally impressive. 3 NFL Defensive Player of the Year awards, 10 Pro Bowl selections, and the 1986 NFL Most Valuable Player award, making him one of only 2 defensive players ever to win the honor. But their partnership was about more than just wins and losses. It represented a philosophical approach to excellence that transcended football. Parcells believed in pushing his players to their absolute limits, creating an environment where mediocrity was not just discouraged, but actively purged. Taylor, with his combination of talent and temperament, became the perfect laboratory for this approach. But greatness always comes at a cost. For Parcells and Taylor, their fiery chemistry didn't just ignite championships, it also lit the fuse for scandals, addictions, and chaos that threatened to burn their entire legacy to the ground. Controversies and chaos, when legends collide. The relationship between Bill Parcells and Lawrence Taylor was never just about X's and O's on a chalkboard. It was a high-wire act performed without a safety net, where both men's darkest demons and greatest triumphs played out on the most public stage imaginable. The controversies that swirled around their partnership read like a Hollywood screenplay, filled with drug scandals, power struggles, and moments of pure chaos that would have destroyed lesser men. Yet somehow, through it all, they managed to build a championship dynasty while navigating through storms that would have sunk most coach-player relationships. The first major controversy to test their partnership emerged during Taylor's early years, when whispers about his off-field behavior began circulating around the Giants organization. By 1982, Taylor had already begun experimenting with cocaine, a habit that would escalate dramatically as his career progressed. What made this particularly challenging for Parcells was that Taylor's drug use coincided with his emergence as one of the most dominant defensive players in NFL history.
You right, I'd go through an ounce a day. There were times I'd be standing in the huddle, and instead of thinking what defense we were playing, I'd be thinking about smoking crack after the game.
Well, you gotta understand though, it didn't affect my play.
Parcells found himself in an impossible position. His best player was also his biggest headache. The coach who had built his reputation on discipline and accountability now had to find ways to manage a player whose personal life was spiraling out of control. The situation came to a head during the 1985 season, when Taylor's cocaine use reached dangerous levels, and team officials began to take notice. One of the most infamous incidents from this period involved Taylor arriving at a team meeting still wearing handcuffs from a night with prostitutes. Carl Banks, Taylor's teammate and close friend, later recounted the surreal scene during a 1989 team meeting. The lights were dimmed for film study when a faint clink-clink of metal echoed through the room. Players turned to see Taylor lifting his sweater to reveal that he was handcuffed, having lost the key after a night of debauchery with women who were trying out some new equipment. The incident forced Dallas police to be called to remove the handcuffs, turning the team hotel into an impromptu spectacle. Parcells, known for his volcanic temper, was reportedly mortified, forced to address the situation mid-meeting while trying to prepare his team for a crucial game against the Cowboys. The episode became legendary in NFL circles, exemplifying the kind of chaos that Parcells had to manage while trying to maintain team discipline. But the handcuff incident was just the tip of the iceberg. In 1987, Taylor made the shocking decision to publicly admit his cocaine use in his autobiography, LT Living on the Edge. The revelation sent shockwaves through the NFL and placed Parcells in an incredibly difficult position. The book detailed how Taylor had used cocaine and crack cocaine as frequent frequently as 3 times per week during the 1985 season, often using teammates' urine to pass drug tests. The admission came at a particularly sensitive time, as the NFL was grappling with a growing drug problem throughout the league. Parcells found himself having to defend not just his player, but his own coaching methods and oversight of the team. The controversy intensified when Taylor failed an official NFL drug test in August 1987, his first documented violation under the league's substance abuse policy. As a first-time offender, he received only a warning and mandatory counseling, but the incident highlighted the precarious nature of his situation. One more violation could have ended his career, leaving Parcells without his defensive cornerstone. Parcells' handling of Taylor's drug problems became a subject of intense scrutiny and criticism. Some accused the coach of enabling Taylor's behavior by looking the other way in order to keep his star player on the field. Others argued that Parcells was doing everything possible to help Taylor while maintaining team discipline. The coach himself would later vehemently deny allegations that he ignored Taylor's drug use, insisting that he had confronted the issue head-on and worked tirelessly to get his player the help he needed. The situation reached its lowest point during the 1988 season, when Taylor failed a second drug test and was suspended for 30 days by the NFL. The suspension came during training camp and forced Taylor to miss the first 4 games of the regular season. For Parcells, it was both a personal and professional disaster, losing his best player due to circumstances that could have been prevented. What made Taylor's 1988 comeback even more remarkable was how he channeled his addiction struggles into on-field brilliance. Despite missing the first month of the season, he returned to record 15.5 sacks in just 12 games, including one of the most legendary performances in NFL history. On November 27, 1988, against the New Orleans Saints, Taylor played with a torn pectoral muscle and separated shoulder, his right arm essentially immobilized in a makeshift sling of athletic tape and harness. Despite his physical limitations, Taylor dominated the game with 3 sacks, including a one-handed strip sack that left observers stunned. Parcells later called it the greatest game I ever saw a player play, a testament to both Taylor's incredible will and the coach's ability to motivate his players even under the most difficult circumstances. But the controversies weren't limited to Taylor's personal struggles. The 1987 NFL strike created another flashpoint in their relationship when Taylor made the controversial decision to cross the picket line and play alongside replacement players. The decision drew intense criticism from teammates and union leaders who felt betrayed by their star player's choice to prioritize individual interests over collective bargaining. Parcells found himself caught in the middle of a labor dispute that threatened to tear apart his locker room. Taylor's decision to play created resentment among players who honored the strike, while also providing the team with an unfair competitive advantage. The coach later admitted that the strike haunted him, representing one of the most challenging periods in his coaching career. Another major controversy emerged during Taylor's contract negotiations, which became increasingly contentious as his value to the team grew. His 1990 holdout lasted 45 days, extending deep into the preseason and creating a media circus that dominated New York sports coverage. Taylor, seeking to become the highest-paid defensive player in NFL history, refused to report to training camp, forcing Parcells to prepare for the season without his defensive anchor. The holdout tested their relationship in new ways, as Parcells had to balance his loyalty to Taylor with his responsibility to the team. The coach publicly supported the organization's position while privately maintaining contact with Taylor, walking a diplomatic tightrope that required all of his considerable interpersonal skills. When Taylor finally reported just days before the season opener, signing a 3-year, $5 million extension, the reunion was both triumphant and tense. In his first game back, Taylor exploded for 3 sacks against the Philadelphia Eagles, vindication for both his negotiating position and Parcells' patient handling of the situation. But perhaps the most challenging controversy for Parcells came not from Taylor's on-field antics or contract disputes, but from the broader scrutiny of his coaching methods. Critics accused Parcells of creating a toxic environment where players were subjected to psychological abuse disguised as motivation. The coach's confrontational style, exemplified in his interactions with Taylor, drew fire from those who believed it represented an outdated and harmful approach to player development. The relationship between Parcells and Taylor also became complicated by the coach's handling of other controversial situations. When Parcells abruptly retired following the Giants' Super Bowl 25 victory in 1991, many blamed the stress of managing Taylor and other high-maintenance players for the coach's decision to step away at the peak of his success. The controversies surrounding Parcells and Taylor weren't just about individual incidents. They represented a broader challenge facing the NFL during the 1980s and early 1990s. The league was grappling with issues of player conduct, drug abuse, and the limits of coaching authority, all of which were embodied in the volatile relationship between the fiery coach and his troubled superstar. Their partnership survived numerous scandals that would have destroyed most professional relationships, from Taylor's drug arrest to his erratic behavior, from contract holdouts to locker room confrontations. confrontations. Each controversy tested their bond in different ways, but somehow they managed to channel the chaos into championship-level performance. Yet even after the dust settled, the story wasn't over. What came next was not just about football, but about survival, redemption, and the heavy price of carrying greatness off the field. After the storm, legacies forged and fired. The immediate aftermath of the 1987 season marked a turning point not just for the Lawrence Taylor-Bill Parcells relationship, but for both men's trajectories as they navigated the complex landscape of professional football and personal redemption. What followed in the years after that heated sideline exchange would define both their legacies and forever change how we understand the delicate balance between genius and self-destruction in professional sports. Parcells' shocking retirement announcement on May 15, 1991, just months after their Super Bowl triumph, sent shockwaves through the NFL. At age 49, and at the absolute peak of his coaching powers, Parcells cited burnout and health concerns, but many close to the situation believed that managing Taylor and other high-maintenance players had taken its toll on the coach's mental and physical well-being. Taylor's reaction to Parcells' departure revealed the depth of their complicated relationship. In emotional interviews, he expressed genuine grief at losing the coach who had become something like a surrogate father figure. "I don't see how George Young and the Giants organization could allow that man to go. I can't see it. You offer him the world to stay. I don't care what it is. Pay the son of a bitch. Give him more power, whatever it takes." The departure of Parcells marked the beginning of the end for Taylor's playing career. Under new coach Ray Handley, the Giants' defense declined dramatically, falling from elite status to mediocrity in just one season. Taylor, now 30 and battling the accumulated wear of a dozen NFL seasons, saw his production decline as well, though he still managed to be effective in limited action. The 1992 season brought disaster when Taylor suffered a devastating Achilles injury that essentially ended his effectiveness as an elite pass rusher. The sight of the normally indestructible linebacker writhing in pain on the field was a stark reminder that even legends are ultimately vulnerable to the physical demands of professional football. Taylor's final season in 1993 was a shadow of his former greatness, as he managed just 6 sacks while clearly struggling with both physical limitations and the absence of Parcells' motivational fire. His retirement following the Giants' playoff loss to San Francisco marked the end of one of the most dominant defensive careers in NFL history, but it also signaled the beginning of an even more challenging chapter in his personal life. The post-retirement years brought the full extent of Taylor's demons into harsh public view. Without the structure and accountability of professional football, his drug use escalated to dangerous levels. By the mid-1990s, he was spending up to $1,000 daily on cocaine and crack, living in conditions that his own representatives described as resembling a crack house. A series of arrests for drug-related offenses in the late 1990s culminated in Taylor's 1998 arrest for crack possession in Florida. The once mighty linebacker, who had struck fear into the hearts of NFL quarterbacks, was now making headlines for all the wrong reasons. The contrast between his on-field brilliance and personal struggles became a cautionary tale about the challenges facing retired athletes. It was during this dark period that Taylor's relationship with Parcells took on new significance. The retired coach, who had moved on to success with the Patriots and later the Jets, maintained contact with his former player, offering support and encouragement even as Taylor's life continued to unravel. Their bond, forged in those heated exchanges captured in the 1987 footage, proved stronger than their professional relationship. Taylor's lowest point came in 2010 with his arrest for sexual misconduct involving a minor, a scandal that threatened to completely destroy his legacy. The Hall of Fame linebacker, once celebrated as one of the greatest defensive players in history, now faced the possibility of prison time and lifetime registration as a sex offender. The incident represented the culmination of decades of poor decisions and self-destructive behavior. Taylor's guilty plea to reduce charges in 2011 resulted in 6 years of probation and sex offender registration, but it also marked a turning point in his personal journey. The harsh reality of his situation, combined with the potential loss of his freedom, finally provided the wake-up call that years of intervention attempts had failed to achieve. Meanwhile, Parcells' post-Giants career took a very different trajectory. His success with the Patriots, including a Super Bowl appearance in 1996, proved that his coaching brilliance extended beyond his ability to manage Lawrence Taylor. The relationship with owner Robert Kraft soured over personnel control issues, leading to another dramatic exit, but Parcells had established himself as one of the game's premier coaches. The move to the Jets in 1997 brought Parcells back to the New York metropolitan area, and with it, renewed speculation about a possible reunion with Taylor. While that reunion never materialized in a professional sense, the symbolic significance of Parcells returning to Taylor's backyard wasn't lost on observers who had followed their tumultuous relationship. Parcells' success with the Jets, including an AFC Championship game appearance in 1998, further cemented his reputation as a coach who could succeed with different personnel and in different circumstances. But those who knew him best understood that his relationship with Taylor remained a defining experience, one that had taught him valuable lessons about the limits of coaching influence and the importance of player accountability. The dramatic exit of Bill Belichick from the Jets in 2000 provided another connection to the Parcells-Taylor era. Belichick, who had been mentored by Parcells and had worked closely with Taylor during their championship years, carried forward many of the lessons learned from that volatile but successful partnership. Parcells' final coaching stop came with the Dallas Cowboys, where he spent 4 seasons trying to restore another fallen franchise to prominence. While he achieved moderate success, the fire that had once burned so brightly during his Giants years seemed somewhat diminished. The unique chemistry that had existed with Taylor proved impossible to replicate, highlighting just how special their partnership had been. For Taylor, the path to redemption proved long and difficult. His 2011 legal settlement and probation marked the beginning of a gradual rehabilitation, though it came at tremendous personal cost. The man who had once been invincible on the football field now faced the daily challenge of rebuilding his reputation and his life. The process of redemption for Taylor involved not just staying out of legal trouble, but also coming to terms with the damage his actions had caused. His relationships with his children, strained by years of addiction and legal problems, required patient rebuilding. The support system that Parcells had once provided now had to come from within Taylor himself. Recent years have seen Taylor make gradual progress in rehabilitating his image through the Lawrence Taylor Family Foundation and various community outreach programs. He has attempted to use his experiences as a cautionary tale for young athletes facing similar challenges. The work has been painstaking and often setbacks have occurred, but it represents a genuine effort to find meaning beyond football. Parcells, now in his 80s, has found a different kind of peace in retirement. His induction into the Pro Football Hall of Fame in 2013 provided validation for a coaching career that had been defined as much by the players he managed as the victories he achieved. In his acceptance speech, he made specific mention of Taylor, acknowledging both the challenges and the rewards of their relationship. The relationship between Parcells and Taylor also influenced a generation of coaches and players who witnessed their dynamic firsthand. Bill Belichick, who learned under Parcells and coached Taylor, went on to become the most successful coach of the modern era, applying many of the lessons learned from observing their volatile but productive partnership. Taylor's ongoing legal issues, including recent arrests for sex offender registry violations, serve as sobering reminders that redemption is not a linear process. Each setback represents not just a personal failure, but a disappointment for those who have supported his rehabilitation efforts, including former teammates and coaches who remember his greatness. Parcells, meanwhile, has largely avoided the public eye in recent years, content to enjoy his racing horses in Saratoga and reflect on a coaching career that spanned nearly 4 decades. His rare public appearances often include references to Taylor, acknowledging both the talent and the challenges that define their relationship. If you enjoyed watching this video, click on one of the boxes playing on your screen to watch more similar content.